Once upon a time, there was a bus that had a front engine with a front entrance. It soon became one of the worst disasters in the recorded history of buses. The concept was tried again about 15 years later. The result? Not perfect, but certainly not a repeat of past events. This is the story of the Volvo Ailsa B55, the bus that showed you can always try again. Hi, this is Jeffrey. Now, back around 1958 or 1959, a new bus appeared called the Guy Wulfrunian. Now, what made this bus different from most other buses of the era is that it had an engine up front as well as an entrance up front, or at least almost all of them did. Now, this bus also had a number of other technical innovations as well, but what happened was the Guy Wulfrunian became what was known as one of the worst buses in the history of buses. Now, in the 1970s, the concept of a front-engined, front-entrance bus was tried again, and it was called the Volvo Ailsa B55. Now, was this bus the same as the Wulfrunian, or did it meet the same fate as the Wulfrunian? Well, let's find out. So let's get started in learning about the Volvo Ailsa B55. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Such was the case with the Volvo Ailsa B55, which was a front-engined double-decker bus chassis manufactured in Scotland by Ailsa, Volvo's British subsidiary in which it owned 75%. Production ran from 1974 until 1985. The B55 was designed with a front-mounted engine that permitted a front entrance position suitable for one-person operation. In this sense, there was a similarity with the earlier but unsuccessful and much vilified Guy Wulfrunian. It was fitted with the Volvo TD70 engine, a compact turbocharged unit of 6.7 liters. The rest of the design was relatively simple, with beam axles and leaf springs. It first appeared at the 1973 Scottish Motor Show. The first version was later to become known as the Mark I. In 1977, an improved Mark II version appeared with two transmission options offered, a self-changing gears pneumocyclic unit and a Voith G851 with retarder. It was followed in 1980 by a Mark III version, at which time the Ailsa name was dropped. This utilized a Volvo truck rear axle in place of the previous troublesome axle. Air suspension was also an option. Now, let's take a look at some of the basic specifications of the Ailsa B55. Number 1. Length was originally offered in 4 options, which were A. 9.8 meters, which is the UK standard with 79 seats and a single door. B. 10.2 meters, a UK jumbo 2-door with 83 seats and was also meant as an export variant. C. 11.5 meters. This was meant as a single-door, single-deck, high-capacity standy bus. And finally, D. 12 meters, meant as an export super jumbo with 3 axles, a 171-seat capacity with 2 doors. Number 2. Chassis width was 2.356 meters or 7 feet 8 3/4 inches. Number 3. Gross vehicle design weight was 16 tons. Number 4. Engine was the Volvo TD70E or TD70H. The most popular bodywork was the Alexander AV type, easily identifiable by its peaked front, and then replaced by the RV type starting in the early 1980s. The Falkirk-based Alexander factory building the bodies meant that the Alexander-bodied Ailsa B55s were entirely built in Scotland, a significant factor in securing Scottish orders. In total, just over 1,000 B-55s were built, 890 of them being bodied by Alexander. Of the remainder, 64 Ailsas received unusual Van Hool McArdle bodies built in Dublin, 62 buses for the South Yorkshire PTE, and 2 for the A1 service Ayrshire. Northern Counties bodied some buses for Derby Corporation and Cardiff Bus. A total of 35 were also bodied by East Lancs coach builders for Tayside, and a small number were also bodied by Marshall for Strathclyde and Derby Corporation. And finally, a solitary Ailsa chassis was bodied as a single-deck bus by Marshall for Strathclyde PTE. Later, the same operator created a second single-decker by converting an Alexander-bodied double-decker, the upper deck of which had been damaged. The Ailsa B55 type was especially popular with the Scottish bus group. Of all the constituent divisions, Northern and Lowland were the only ones never to adopt the Ailsa into their fleets. Strathclyde PTE was a significant buyer of the Ailsa, but not until the introduction of the Mark III. By far the most enthusiastic supporter of the Ailsa was Tayside Regional Council, who bought 161 examples for use on their Dundee city services between 1976 and 1984, with 4 different body types: Alexander AV and RV, Northern Counties, and East Lancs. The B-55 was popular with the passenger transport executives, with significant purchases made by West Midlands and South Yorkshire, and to a lesser degree Merseyside and Tyne and Wear. Other customers included Cardiff Bus, who purchased 36 new with Northern Counties bodywork between 1981 and 1984, as well as acquiring second-hand examples. As part of its alternative vehicle evaluation program, London Transport took delivery of 3 Mark III vehicles in 1984. The most interesting of the 3 vehicles was fleet number V3. This vehicle maintained the usual front entrance door, but had an additional exit behind the rear axle and a second staircase adjacent. The second staircase created a blind spot for the driver, and the vehicle was restricted to crew operation. The vehicle remained unique, although London buses rebuilt the rear, removing the doors but leaving the staircase in place. After a fatal crash, the bus was sold for scrap. V3 was rescued from a scrap dealer by Black Prince Buses and extensively rebuilt, retaining both staircases, and can now be seen restored to London condition at rallies and running days across southern England. No further orders for the new B-55s were placed by London Transport, but numerous second-hand examples were purchased from the South Yorkshire and West Midlands PTEs in the late 1980s. A number of 2-axle Ailsa B55 buses were sold overseas. Indonesia received 320 buses between 1981 and 1985. China Motor Bus in Hong Kong received 8 between 1975 and 1978. One B-55 was exported to Singapore as a demonstrator for Singapore bus services, and another to Bangkok. A trio of 3-axle Ailsa B-55s were built for export. 2 were sold to China Motor Bus as demonstrators, and the third was exported to Indonesia. The last significant number of Ailsas in service in the UK were operated by Cardiff Bus, who maintained 18 of the type in regular service until 2007, following extensive refurbishment. As for preserved B-55s, there are now around 30 Volvo Ailsas in preservation, with the Glasgow Vintage Vehicle Trust having 6. While the idea of a front-engine, front-entrance bus in the 1970s and 1980s was unconventional, the Ailsa never became known as another Wulfrunian, which years earlier went down in the annals of transport history as one of the worst buses of all time. So there it is, the story of the Volvo Ailsa B55. Now, when you compare it to the Guy Wulfrunian, there definitely were some differences. The chassis layout was different, the placement of the staircase was not the same, and it also had a different front door design. Also, the engine in the B55 was smaller than the engine in the Guy Wulfrunian, so I'm sure that made a big difference as well. Now, I also read something about the B55 where the drivers at Maidstone and District went out on strike because of the poor ventilation inside the bus. I don't know how true that is, but it was just a little something that I read. And also, I have this book here on the Volvo Ailsa by Stuart J. Brown. It's a very good book. It's a very high quality book. Nice glossy boards. It's a full color book on glossy pages. The only thing wrong with the book is that half of it is dedicated to the Volvo City Bus, and that's been a lot of there's been a lot of criticism about this book because of that. But if you want to see nice pictures of the B55 and read about its development, that book would be a good starting point. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Volvo Ailsa B55. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.